Happy Sunday, all. This is definitely not going to be a full-length episode, but as many influencers like to say, I just wanted to hop on here. I'm hopping on here. But it is a fucking miserable Sunday. All we get is rain, and it's cold, and it feels like it's a reasonable day in late February, but somehow we're approaching mid-April, and the weather is still, in the immortal words of my mom, S-H-I-T. But I didn't want to come on here and talk about the weather. So I went into a training injury that I incurred about a week and a half ago. Well, I incurred the injury 16 days ago, but I talked about on an actual full-length episode. But in case you missed it, today is the first day that I engaged in what you would call actual rehab of the injury. So I tore partial, I shouldn't say full tear, because if it was a full tear, I wouldn't be moving around as well as I am. So I tore the bicep partially, not from the shoulder. I tore it from the forearm, and it is called a distal tendon, D-I-S-T-A-L. And it hurt. You've maybe seen videos on YouTube of training injuries, some more gruesome than others. Mine was not exactly a gruesome injury, but I felt a snap and a pop. There was no crackle. It was just a snap and a pop. And when I tell you that is a terrible sensation, I knew that I was fucked. And the irony being that I had changed my training process again about a month and a half ago because I felt that something was not correct in my right arm. There was tightness at the bottom of the bicep. And anytime there is something different orthopedically, the odds that it's something good, somewhere between 0 and 0 degrees Kelvin, which if we remember our science, absolute 0. So I made further adjustments in my training. I started to go lighter, and as I pointed out in the video, in the episode, I injured myself doing something that is not supposed to be that dangerous, getting a spare tire out of the trunk. I wasn't paying close enough attention to my movements and what I was attempting to do and what angle I was pulling, and I pulled right on that area that had been bothering me and snap, pop. So when I realized that I was injured, but I was not as seriously injured as I could have been, then it was a matter of, because there was very little swelling. The swelling, if I could show you, it's in the crook of the elbow on the bottom, kind of like near where the ulnar nerve, the infamous ulnar nerve, the UCL that pitchers tear. But that part of the elbow, just above the ulnar nerve, is really where the only swelling at all was. And the only black and blue, which was not black and blue, it was more like a yellowy, as far as the bruising, the only bruising that existed was literally in my forearm, and only in certain light would you be able to see it. So we're not talking about horrendous black and blue, like there's the famous picture on the internet, if you want to Google it. It was a picture taken at Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym after Dorian Yates blew out his bicep sometime around the spring of 1994. I wasn't there. I was there that day at Bev's, but I wasn't there when this happened. When Dorian blew out his bicep doing curl grip bent over rows with, 400 pounds or some crazy amount. I mean, Dorian was sick strength back then. The guy's strength was absurd. But that was a bicep tear from the shoulder, and the picture, he doesn't look like he's in pain, but his arm is so black and blue, you think it looks like a movie special effect. So as the days have gone by, I have been looser and looser, and the arm is sore, but when I'm just not doing anything, I don't feel it. And I don't mean because it's numb. I mean because the shock of the injury, the pain, the soreness is now at what you would call normal levels. Even as recently as about 3 or 4 days ago, I was aware of the arm all the time. And I just continue to very lightly stretch, very lightly. And when I say it, I'm not, I don't want to say not exaggerating, but I am being very, very cautious. Like, you can't be any more cautious and careful than I have been with this arm. certainly don't want to, injure it any worse. So the long story short is that at home, as many of you know, I have a functional home gym. It's nothing extravagant. I don't have the $5,000 home gym of some of my friends and acquaintances, but it's fully loaded as far as I have plates for the trap bar, 300 pounds of plates. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that anytime soon, if ever. Although I think if I keep the weight, meaning the total weight, under 100, the trap bar is 55. So my sense is not now, but let's say a month or so from now, I feel like I will be able to do the trap bar safely. And I'm being serious. If I only have 85 total pounds, including the bar, I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to handle it, but not now, not yet. But I have dumbbells. I have an adjustable dumbbell set that goes from 11 pounds to 71 and a half or something like that. I don't know. I didn't exactly weigh them, but that's what it is advertised. But right now, I mean, I can move. You could see me moving my arm around, but I don't want to take any chances with any kind of weight that I'm not 100% sure that I can handle. So yesterday, I went to what I keep wanting to call the rest of the store 8 Below, but 8 Below was a movie I really liked starring the late Paul Walker. I can't stop calling that store 8 Below. 5 Below. I went to 5 Below and I picked up a 3-pound dumbbell, a 5-pound dumbbell, and an 8-pound dumbbell. And what I just did at home in my home gym was I did a bunch of different exercises for my left side, which is fine, but I used a little bit more weight. I didn't want to have myself completely off balance. Oh yeah, I'm going to do bench presses with, a 30-pound dumbbell in my left arm and a 3-pound dumbbell in my right arm, or just moving my damaged arm through space. No, I didn't do that. I kept everything. It's not the end of the world if I don't have a real workout on the left side, is what I'm saying. So I started very slowly. I did different kinds of dumbbell curls, just moving my arm through space. And then I did a little bit of stretching, but again, very light stretching, because there's different kinds of soreness. If you haven't incurred, and this is the first time I'm having an injury like this. I'm 51 years old, 51. And my wimpy training, which wasn't really wimpy training. The guys at Bebs, we used to joke around because when I got to my late 30s, I completely stopped. In the immortal words of the great Susan Powder, I stopped the insanity. Remember her? If you're under 40, you might not know who the hell that is. She was the infomercial queen back in the 90s, and her catchphrase was stop the insanity. Well, for me, stop the insanity was not doing crazy weights for crazy repetitions. But that's where I started to get injured. I made it into my late 30s and body couldn't handle it anymore. So you make adjustments, you do different things, and you try not to really hurt yourself. And it worked. I was able to, from my late 30s until 16, 17 days ago, I did not have any major injuries while working out. And obviously 16 days ago, I didn't have it working out. I had it trying to pull a spare out of the trunk and pulling it from a terrible angle, like as one of my friends would say, like a deep ditty, just like I did. What are you doing? Don't do that. Why don't you put your foot on the fucking trunk of the car while you're at it and yank on it? But I took the 3-pound dumbbell and I just very gently stretched the area where it's still sore in the, the surrounding area of where the injury took place. And if I could show you, because I could still move around here, as you can see, just, again, if this is a tear from the shoulder, and some of you can identify with this, you can't move your arm like that. You're not going to be able to. It feels like, and it feels like somebody's sticking a knife right in the area. That ain't good. But basically, the soreness is here. And you might be able to see a little bit of black and blue. See? Just a little bit. Now, it looked worse a week and a half ago. But it's not sore to the touch. But that's when the injury was incurred. So you just stretch, and I've been stretching, and then the 3-pound dumbbell I didn't even go to the 5 or the 8. Not taking any chances here. So I did dumbbell curls, 2 different kinds, with 3-pound dumbbell just with my right arm. And then I went on the bench and I made sure my, for what it's worth, made sure my pecs were stretched out and all of this kind of shit. And I did some dumbbell bench presses, very, very slow, very, very light. Got the slightest bit of a pump, in the pecs. And from doing, a little bit of arm, 3-pound dumbbell overhead tricep extension. And then it doesn't hurt. I'm sorry. So what I was showing is the only swelling that I still have is here. This is what I was talking about. Let me move this. I'm sorry. This part of the arm, right there. There's still a little bit of swelling. And stretching that to try to break up, there's got to be a lot of scar tissue. It's something I know. The only surgery that I ever had in my life, when I had the gyno surgery, that fucking disaster, what was it called? 90 Hours of Hell. That was the video when I talked about that horrendous nightmare story. But in that instance, the scar tissue that formed, it acts as a shield. It keeps you from injuring yourself, but you reach a point where you try to break it up so that the area doesn't really look deformed. But the balance is you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to overstretch. And so very, very careful. Moving the arm slowly. Where does it hurt? Where does it not hurt? Because there are, at this point, I would say about 95% of the ways that I move my arm, I don't feel anything that I wouldn't have felt a couple of months ago. Put it that way. So the upshot, my first actual rehab session, where I'm not simply doing little tiny stretches, but where I'm moving my arm in a manner that I would normally have done months ago, just not really using any weight. But the 3-pound dumbbell, you can feel it working the injured area in a therapeutic way. And that's what this is. This is not any kind of muscle building. This isn't really even maintenance. You're going to have atrophy. There's no way around it. But if I'd had the kind of tear where I would have needed immediate surgery, well, I wouldn't have really been able to do anything for a couple of months. My arm would have been locked to my side. And hey, if it had happened, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes you get lucky within the context of being unlucky, which is how I would describe it, because you're not supposed to have that kind of injury. The spare tire isn't that heavy, but it was not in a part of the trunk. I had difficulty getting it loose, and then I pulled from the wrong angle, and there you go. But next time I do this, I don't think I'll do it tomorrow. I'll probably be a little bit sore because this is the first weight-bearing exercise of any kind I've done now in 2.5 weeks. Even something as ridiculous as a 3-pound dumbbell. I know that I worked the area exceedingly lightly. But when I say lightly, I don't just mean weight. I just mean from an overall sense. But I'll give myself a couple of days, and I'll start with a 3-pound dumbbell next time, and then move to a 5-pound dumbbell, and we'll see how that feels. Because, as part of my normal day, I can carry stuff with my right arm, but it's not the same thing. Because when you carry things, you can use your shoulder, you can use your traps. Your hands simply act like hooks. You're not necessarily working your bicep. So these are the things, as somebody who has been, working out with weights since his teens, without necessarily studying kinesiology in school, there are things that you just pick up along the way and that you understand, that you no longer need to get out of a book. Not that there's anything wrong with saying, hey, what are the best exercises for a distal bicep tendon tear? Because we look that up. But just in general, when they say let whoever the they is, but when the conventional wisdom says, let pain be the guide, that's not bad advice. Because if something hurts, not normal soreness, well, then something's wrong. As what I was pointing out, that I started to feel this tightness. That was my body's way of telling me, unfortunately, change your workout. Go lighter. Maybe do a little bit more stretching. I had the right idea. But I didn't keep that right idea, because why would I expect to injure myself pulling a tire out of the trunk? I wouldn't. But the irony is, I wasn't even going to go as heavy as 50-pound dumbbells for dumbbell bench presses, because that was the one exercise where I felt it. When I would do shoulder presses, I did some of those today also. I had 5-pound dumbbell in my left arm, which again is okay, and a 3-pound dumbbell in my right arm to do shoulder presses. Range of motion is fine. There's not enough swelling or stiffness to prevent me from doing full range of motion on that exercise. Again, these are the things you think about, because you can't force that. There are going to be times when you suffer an injury where even as you heal, there is so much scar tissue, you won't have full range of motion. You can push yourself, but you have to not get angry at the fact that it's taking longer to rehab than you would like. Nobody wants to miss time at the gym. And again, where I was fortunate here, there's nothing wrong with my lower body. There's nothing keeping me from doing elliptical or any kind of cardio, whether I don't jog, but if you jog, if you have major surgery, they're going to tell you, don't do any cardio, probably a week to 10 days. As I remember when I had my surgery, which was not even a major surgery. It wasn't supposed to be. It ended up being a major surgery. But the doctor was very clear, and he wasn't one man on an island with this thing. He said, you don't want to raise your blood pressure too much for sustained stretches, like if you're doing cardio for an hour straight or even a half hour. So if you could avoid all that, at least you can get your endorphin rush, you can work out, you can keep your lungs healthy, and you can keep your mind right. Because how important is it if you suffer a catastrophic injury? Keep your mind right. Don't become overly despondent. Know that it's temporary. This is not permanent. And right from the first, when a doctor checked me out within 2 hours of the injury, it's not a full tear. Don't panic. Your arm's not going to blow up black and blue, I can tell. You're going to be okay. Got lucky there. But I can't say that I'm excited about this because it still sucks. My arm is not going to look, it's not going to look the same. Now, I'm one of those people, I always had maybe a little bit more of a gap between the bottom of the bicep and the crook of the elbow. But I'm going to have more of a gap on the right side. Them's the breaks, literally. It's just the way that it goes. And as always, I'm exceedingly grateful. I got a good diagnosis. The fact that I was able to see someone I trusted so quickly, it could have been a lot worse. And how much of life is not just things that happen to us, but how we react. And younger me would have hit the panic button immediately and freaked out. Older me dealt with the pain. All right, we'll ice it up, whatever the case might be. And let's just take it, cliche city again, let's just take it one day at a time. And there will come a point in time where you are able to get back to some form of normal workouts. The arm will heal. And I knew a lot of guys at Bev's that one guy messed up one tricep and then the other tricep, had to have surgery twice. Another friend tore one bicep, then he tore the other bicep. Worse than I did. Each of those injuries were way worse. So, small favors, as they say. I am humbled by the injury for sure, but I am forever and always grateful that when things go wrong, they don't seem to go as wrong as they could. And some people say, no, well, actually, Jared, that's just the way you're taking it because this is really bad. Well, I don't feel like it was really bad because relatively speaking, there's a version of the story where my arm is basically hanging from my shoulder and I'm in an ambulance 5 minutes after that injury. So you want to say that that's just that I have a good perspective? Okay. Personal growth, I like to believe. My mindset is different. If that injury happens when I'm 31, I don't react the same way. So I guess that's about it. If your body is giving you warning signs, take heed, pay attention, and don't be afraid to make adjustments to what you're trying to do. You might get hurt anyway. I think that this was inevitable. It was going to happen one way or another. It was just a question of when, not if. And unfortunately, I told people, I think I got a problem with my right arm here. Them's the breaks. So I hope you have a great Sunday. Geez, I talked for longer than I expected. I hope this was not as dull as it maybe could have been. But you understand that as we get older, we are more likely to have these kinds of issues crop up. and just have to deal with them as well as we can and hopefully not end up in the hospital, because there's worlds of difference between this and rehabbing slowly, and yeah, your arm's not going to look the same, versus emergency surgery, and you might be in a cast, you might have your arm locked to your side for 6 weeks. We don't want that. Again, in life, there are levels of bad. Just as in sports fandom, there are levels of losing. Not every Yankees defeat in the World Series or playoffs is the same as every other defeat. There are some that hurt a lot worse, so to speak. This has been episode 489. Man, I'm losing it. I don't even remember. We're going to call it 489 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of this miserable Sunday morning here with me in New York. If you checked out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, stay safe in the gym, please.